The Coast Guard boys were detecting large disturbances in the waters, and sonar reports kept coming in. Only something incredibly heavy falling into the ocean could have caused this, and Captain Izzy Barkley's crew was assigned to investigate the tremors. The buoy that recorded the most tremors was located about 20 miles off the coast. When Izzy and her team arrived on the scene, they immediately got to work. Izzy, being the lead investigator, traditionally took the first dive. Moments after resurfacing, she spotted their target, a massive shipping container lying on the ocean floor. It was clear that Izzy couldn't lift the metal object with her bare hands. She quickly surfaced and ordered the ship's diving robot to take over. "Let's move this to our boat," she commanded. But before we start, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the bell icon for more amazing stories. Fortunately, they hadn't left their research center on just any ship. No, their vessel was equipped with modern technology that Izzy could utilize. Following Izzy's instructions, her colleagues prepared the drone for a deep dive. However, none of them were ready for the strange discovery that awaited. Once the drone was lowered into the water, Izzy took control and the exciting part of the mission began. The water was calm and clear, making navigation towards the container on the seafloor easy. Getting to the object turned out to be less challenging than anticipated. Once the machine secured the container, it was time to start the ascent. The robot clamped its protruding claws onto the container's sides. From this point on, all the ship could do was pull the robot in. But things were more difficult than expected. The container was much heavier than they had imagined. Their ship crane was capable of lifting massive objects. But somehow this simple shipping container made their machine work extremely hard. The whole boat rocked back and forth and even took on some water as it lifted the metal box out of the water. "What the hell is in there?" Izzy asked. After putting in a lot of effort and seeing the excited faces of several people, they eventually managed to lift the mysterious container out of the water. It landed with a loud thud on the deck of their ship, and the entire crew immediately rushed to inspect the amazing find. "What is it? Why is this here?" Izzy's colleagues would probably be delighted with what's inside. However, it was Izzy herself who was truly intrigued, because she noticed something that pointed to her colleague. A shipping container is usually not waterproof, so when it is lifted from the ocean floor, you would expect water to leak out of every hole. But in this case, that was not the case. Somehow this airplane-like shipping container was insulated, as if it had been designed to not allow a drop of water to pass through. But why did this happen? The deck workers, who formed the backbone of the team, had already begun to pull the door handle. A large bolt cutter was used to cut away the main lock on the container, and then the door handles were pushed aside. Slowly but surely, the container doors swung open. Izzy stepped back to inspect the entire container and shook her head. She was speechless. The inside of the container was fully furnished. The room had a bed, a sofa, a wardrobe, and a table with chairs. There was everything that is in an ordinary house. "Have any of you ever seen anything like this?" Izzy asked her colleagues, but everyone in the group shared disbelief and bewilderment at the strange find. There were a lot of questions. Where did this come from? Who could live like this and why? It didn't take long for the team to begin their investigation. Izzy was surprised not only that the container was fully furnished, but also that everything was still in place. They quickly discovered that everything was nailed to the floor. However, there were several loose items scattered on the floor, and they found photographs of the man and his family. Did he or they live in a container? Who were they, and what happened? They continued their search to find answers to these questions. They searched every inch of the container but found nothing that could bring them closer to the truth. Izzy sighed in disappointment and was about to give up when one of Izzy's colleagues suddenly let out a scream of delight. Turning around, she saw that he was holding a plastic bag with a zipper in his hands, but what excited him most was that inside it was something like a voice recorder. This was a sure sign and she dutifully pressed play. It was a male voice, likely belonging to the man in the photographs. That was great. It was difficult to make out the recording in the middle of the ocean, so the group quickly moved inside. At first, it was mostly background noise, but then the voice became clear. "Here, I need to record this before they notice we're here and take a picture of us," someone answered in the background. There was a short silence. Then the man cleared his throat and introduced himself as Ahmed Osman. "I hope someone finds the container in this post and can help. We desperately need help. We're aboard the Eternal Cargo Voyager, but I don't know for how long. Please save us." The man's voice became more and more desperate. Then the recorder stopped again. Izzy tried to turn it back on, but her efforts were in vain. It was broken. Silence reigned in the room. They were all speechless. Everyone realized that something terrible had happened to the people who owned the container, but what exactly, and could they help them? And then Izzy remembered something. The ship was seen several times, but each time it seemed to stop for a short time. It had just refueled and carried a minimum of cargo, despite being filled with containers. Izzy scanned the database again, hoping to find more information about the vessel. She exclaimed when she noticed where he was last seen, but the strange messages in the logs database and the ominous entry were enough for Izzy to try to track the ship. The place where the ship was last seen was not far away, so they could be there soon, and if they understood the man on the recording correctly, time was of the essence. Izzy made sure everyone on board agreed with her and was glad to see everyone shared her concern about the situation. She told the captain the coordinates of the ship's last known location. Arriving at the spot, they were surprised to see a ship floating 20 kilometers from the coast. It just lay there. Even though Izzy and her colleagues were curious to know what was going on, they were also eager to get closer. The recording sounded very threatening, and they agreed that this was not just a job for them. They need help. "I'll notify the Coast Guard and the police," Izzy said firmly. Izzy made sure that when the Coast Guard and police arrived, they were out of sight of the cargo ship. Once the officers were on board, she quickly explained the situation to them and recounted what they heard on the recording. She felt relieved that the police believed her and took it very seriously. Meanwhile, the captain gave orders to his workers, and a flurry of activity began on the ship. They waited for an answer for about half an hour. Workers lowered the gangway so the trio could board. The captain greeted them gruffly when they finally came on deck. "You have 1 hour," he said, after which he ordered everyone to return to work. Izzy smiled and tried her best to look like she was taking notes. Izzy and the officers walked around the ship, trying to figure out what was going on while trying to be as inconspicuous as possible. But there was nothing to indicate that anything was wrong. They probably used the last half hour to hide any evidence. In desperation, Izzy began to whisper the man's name. "Ahmed Osman? Are you here?" She repeated this several times as the trio walked between several containers. Then suddenly, one of the containers next to them opened and they were pulled inside before the door closed again. The trio were surprised to see that the container was filled with people, but it wasn't just people in the container. This container was furnished just like the one they pulled out of the ocean. "Who are you?" asked the man. Izzy recognized him immediately from the photographs and the recording. She came forward and explained who they were and that they had found his recording. Ahmed's expression immediately cleared. "I can't believe it. That is, I hoped that he would be found, but I really didn't think that it would be the same person who had lost his way." He shook their hands excitedly and sighed in relief. "This is our chance to get off this horrible ship," he told the others. Ahmed explained that he and everyone else were looking for a way to a safe country. He had heard rumors of a ship that was taking people on board and doing just that. But once he was on board, everything changed. "In exchange for this trip, I had to work on the ship for 1 year, but they continued to extend this period, never allowing me to go ashore. Ahmed explained. "I've been here for 2 years, but some of these people have been here a lot longer." Everyone lived in such containers, and the captain and crew operated them. The conditions were terrible, and the endless labor caused him to rebel. But the team quickly figured out that I was the cause of the uprising and took drastic measures to stop Ahmed. He explained that they threw his container overboard, destroying his house in the process. But before they could do that, he managed to hide the message inside, hoping that someone would find it. The ship was full of families who were being exploited and illegally imprisoned. Something had to be done about this, and quickly. Now that the police knew what was going on, they took action. They asked Ahmed how many crew members were on the ship and whether they could resist. Once they had a complete picture and a surprise raid was planned, reinforcements were called in, and everything worked perfectly. Due to the surprise attack, the ship's crew was quickly arrested. While the criminals were in custody, the Coast Guard took control of the ship. Meanwhile, Izzy helped Ahmed free all the families, and soon the ship docked at the nearest town. A shelter was established there to provide assistance to the victims. It didn't take long for the media to pick up the story. It went national, and Izzy followed it closely when she returned home after the city took control of the relief effort. She was glad that the situation was resolved safely and incredibly happy that she played a role in it.